The boy kept pointing at the trash can and crying. The mother was horrified when she discovered, "Hello everyone. Enjoy these relaxing moments while you watch." Emily took a deep breath, her eyes fixed on her little son, Liam, who was beaming with rosy cheeks. Liam was over 2 years old but still had the innocent look of a little angel, his giggles filling their small house with joy and energy each day. "Are you hungry, my love?" Emily bent down gently, asking as Liam reached for a cookie from her hand. Liam nodded, but his gaze wasn't on his mother today. He was focused on the window, looking out toward the big trash bin in front of the old neighbor's house. The neighbors had moved away, leaving the rusted, time-worn metal bin behind. Emily instinctively followed her son's gaze, but saw nothing unusual, just that large, faded trash bin. "Liam, what's out there?" Emily asked, smiling and holding her son's hand. Liam didn't respond. He simply pointed at the trash bin, his face showing a hint of fear. His lips moved, but no words came out. Emily felt a slight surprise, but she thought perhaps Liam was just focused on something new and interesting. Children are always curious, after all. She reassured herself and leaned down to comfort him. "It's okay, sweetheart. It's just a trash bin, nothing to be scared of." Liam stayed silent, his eyes still glued to that large trash bin, his wide eyes filled with a strange fear, as though something terrifying was there. Emily shivered slightly, but quickly picked Liam up and turned away from the window. Over the following days, Emily noticed that Liam wasn't as cheerful as before. Every time they passed near that trash bin, Liam would shrink back, his face turning pale as if he'd seen something frightening. Sometimes he would shyly cling to his mother, his big round eyes filled with fright, leaving Emily puzzled. "What's wrong, Liam? Is something there?" Emily tried to ask, hoping to find some answers, but Liam only shook his head gently, his face showing a timid fear. One evening, while Emily was making dinner, Liam stood by the window again, staring intently at the trash bin. Emily quietly approached him, bending down and asking softly, "Liam, what do you see there?" Liam whispered in a weak, almost inaudible voice, "The person in the darkness." Emily was startled, her heart suddenly beating faster. She turned to look out the window again, but saw nothing beyond the shadowy outline of the trash bin and nearby trees, just an ordinary night. But the way Liam spoke left her feeling chilled. "Someone in the darkness." Emily frowned, half believing, half doubting. She didn't know if Liam was making things up, or if he had actually seen something. From that day on, Emily felt increasingly uneasy when passing by that neighbor's trash bin, though she reminded herself that it was likely just Liam's imagination. An inexplicable worry lingered within her. Emily kept telling herself that children often imagine things, especially when they encounter unfamiliar things. But each time Liam grew frightened staring at that trash bin, Emily couldn't shake off the uneasiness rising within her. "My love, I promise you there's nothing out there. It's just the neighbor's old trash bin. There's no need to be afraid," Emily gently reassured him, trying to comfort both her son and herself. But Liam remained silent, burying his head into his mother's chest as if seeking absolute safety. Emily looked down at Liam, a strange feeling welling up inside her. Liam was not a timid child. He was usually curious and loved exploring everything. But now, every time they got near the neighbor's trash bin, Liam would grow so frightened he refused to get close. That night, after Liam had fallen asleep, Emily couldn't stop thinking about what had happened. She stood by the window, gazing out at the trash bin with a pensive expression. Even though it was just a place for waste, Emily couldn't ignore the strange feeling growing inside her. Liam's whispers about a person in the darkness echoed in her mind. For a brief moment, Emily wondered if there was something truly frightening hidden in that darkness, or if it was merely a child's imagination. But the longer she looked, the more she felt as if something invisible was lurking there, waiting for someone to let their guard down. That night, Emily awoke from a hazy dream. In her dream, she was walking through darkness, surrounded by a rustling sound and eerie whispers. Her legs trembled as she saw the trash bin towering before her, as if it was waiting for her to approach. Her hands shook as she felt the cold air seeping from inside the bin, mingling with an oppressive sense of suffocation. Emily woke up, beads of sweat on her forehead, feeling anxious and uneasy. She looked over at Liam, peacefully sleeping next to her. But the sense of unease only grew when she thought about what Liam had said. Emily sighed, telling herself she was likely overthinking things. But deep down she knew it wasn't that simple. The next day, as Emily prepared to take Liam out for their usual stroll, she noticed a different expression on her son's face. Liam seemed reluctant to leave the house. He stood still by the door, his eyes fixed on the trash bin outside, his face full of worry. "Liam, come on, my love, let's go to the park, okay?" Emily smiled, trying to create a cheerful atmosphere to capture her son's attention. But Liam didn't move, his eyes still on the trash bin, his face tense as if he were facing something terrifying. Emily felt a strong sense of concern, but reassured herself that Liam was probably just tired. As they walked past the trash bin, a strong foul odor hit them, causing Emily to cover her nose. "Oh my, what a horrible smell," Emily grimaced, glancing down at Liam. But Liam only looked silently at the bin, his face showing a haunted expression. "Liam, I don't understand what you're seeing. You're making me really worried, sweetheart," Emily tried to understand. But Liam remained silent, his eyes wide as if signaling some unspeakable terror. When Emily got close to the trash bin to check, she noticed faint blood stains on the lid and edges of the bin. She shivered, her heart racing as she turned back to look at her son. "Maybe someone accidentally threw something in here," Emily murmured, but she couldn't tear her gaze away from those small yet unmistakable bloodstains. She quickly pulled Liam away from the area, trying to convince herself it was just an accident, but the unpleasant smell and the bloodstains haunted Emily for the rest of the day. As night fell, Emily prepared to go to sleep. But the images of those stains and Liam's fearful expression continued to swirl in her mind like a lingering shadow. She fell into a restless sleep and dreamed she was trapped in a cramped, dark, and suffocating space. In the dream, Emily felt surrounded by an invisible pressure from all sides, and despite her efforts to escape, she couldn't break free. Her own scream in the dream jolted Emily awake, sweat covering her forehead, and the suffocating feeling lingered as an eerie aftertaste. She glanced at Liam, peacefully sleeping beside her, but couldn't regain her sense of peace. "Liam, what did you really see out there?" Emily whispered, her gaze filled with worry. The next day, Emily started paying closer attention to Liam's behavior. Every time they passed the trash bin, though she tried to divert Liam's attention with games and fun stories, each time they neared the bin, Liam would fall silent, his eyes haunted. One day, Emily ran into a nearby neighbor and couldn't resist bringing up what had been troubling her. "Excuse me, do you know why the trash bin next door has been smelling so terrible?" Emily asked, lowering her voice as if not wanting anyone else to hear. The neighbor wrinkled her brow, thinking for a moment, before shaking her head. "I'm not sure either. Lately that bin has seemed unusual. I've heard strange noises at night, but I just assumed it was stray cats." Emily shivered but tried to keep calm. She smiled faintly, nodded in thanks to the neighbor, and headed home, unable to stop thinking about what had just been said. That night, as Emily fell asleep, little Liam began to have strange dreams again. Emily awoke suddenly to the sound of Liam whimpering in his sleep. She gently shook her son, but when Liam opened his eyes, they were filled with fear. Mommy, the person in the darkness," Liam said, his voice trembling. Emily froze, feeling a chill run down her spine. She gently stroked Liam's hair, soothing him, but inside her mind was a storm of emotions. "It's okay, my love. I'm here, don't worry," Emily whispered. But deep down she knew she couldn't ignore this uneasy feeling any longer. It felt like something heavy was hanging over her family, haunting each sleep. Every moment spent with Liam in the days that followed, Emily noticed Liam growing more frightened each time they passed the trash bin. It wasn't just fearful glances anymore. Liam clung tightly to his mother, refusing to take even a single step near it. "Mommy, no, don't go that way," Liam stammered, his eyes filling with tears. Emily was confused, but didn't dare press for more. It seemed that whatever was happening was too complicated for Liam to put into words. "All right, my love. I'll take another route," Emily said, trying to reassure her son, but her mind kept wandering back to the strange events surrounding that trash bin. Each night, lying in bed, Emily thought about the bloodstains, the foul smell, and Liam's words about the person in the darkness. She knew she had to do something, but the fear of what might be behind those eerie signs made her hesitate. Lying in the dark, Emily's mind raced as she wondered whether she should uncover the truth about that trash bin. Lately, it wasn't only Liam's fear that troubled Emily. She too was haunted by the images in her dreams. Her mind seemed trapped in a persistent, vague sense of dread. That morning, as she took Liam out, Emily unexpectedly came across a strange, elderly woman sitting on a park bench not far from their home. The woman was dressed in a worn coat, looking solitary with tangled grey hair. Emily felt something familiar about her, though she couldn't remember meeting her before. "Hello there. Do you live nearby?" Emily asked, trying to be polite. The woman looked at Emily for a long moment, her gaze sad but piercingly cold. She nodded, then unexpectedly glanced toward the trash bin, speaking in a raspy voice. "It's still there, isn't it?" Emily was surprised by the odd question, but her curiosity pushed her to respond. "Do you mean the trash bin?" The woman smiled faintly, a mysterious smile. "Yes, that bin. It's not exactly what you think it is." Her gaze grew distant, as though she was lost in some far-off memory. "You know, sometimes what's inside isn't quite what it seems." Emily shuddered, unsure of how to respond. Liam tightened his grip on her hand, as though sensing his mother's fear. "What do you mean, ma'am?" Emily tried to ask, hoping the woman would explain further. But the elderly woman just shook her head, her eyes drifting into the distance. "Don't get too close. Some things are best left alone. You understand?" Emily felt a mix of emotions rise within her. She wanted to understand the meaning behind the woman's words, but an unspoken fear held her back. When she turned to ask more, the old woman had already stood up and walked away, leaving Emily with countless unanswered questions. When Emily returned home, she couldn't stop thinking about her strange conversation with the woman. The woman's words echoed in her mind like an unspoken warning. "The person in the darkness," Emily whispered, feeling a chill run down her spine. That evening, as she was preparing Liam for bed, Emily heard strange noises coming from the direction of the trash bin. She quietly drew back the curtain and looked outside, seeing the shadowy outline of the trash bin beneath the streetlight. Something seemed to flicker around it, but she didn't dare look for long. Emily told herself she was imagining things, but the faint sound of scratching from inside the bin made her feel fearful. "Liam, do you hear that?" Emily asked, her voice trembling. Liam nodded slightly, his eyes wide with fear. He snuggled closer to his mother, whispering, "Mommy, it's there again." Emily didn't know what to do except to hold her son close, but she realized she could no longer ignore Liam's behavior. She decided to talk to her husband, hoping to find some answers. That night, Emily spoke to David, her husband, as he returned from a long day at work. She held his hand, looking into his calm, reassuring eyes. "David, have you ever noticed the neighbor's trash bin?" Emily started, trying to stay composed. David raised an eyebrow, surprised by his wife's strange question. "The trash bin? Is there something special about it?" Emily hesitated, her eyes filled with worry. "Liam has been very scared when we passed by it, and I feel like something isn't right." David laughed, but his smile faded when he saw the seriousness in Emily's expression. "Are you really that worried about a trash bin? I know it sounds strange, but lately I've seen some bloodstains around it and that terrible smell," Emily sighed. "Today I met an old woman who said something strange about the bin. It's like there's something frightening inside it." David was silent, a flicker of doubt in his eyes, but he didn't want to worry Emily further. "I think you might just be tired. It's probably just stray cats leaving those marks." Emily nodded, trying to trust her husband's words, but deep down she still couldn't shake her unease. The next morning, as she took Liam out, Emily noticed a few new scratch marks on the trash bin's lid, as though something inside was trying to escape. This time, Emily couldn't ignore it anymore. Liam clutched his mother's hand, his eyes wide with fear and his voice trembling. "Mommy, Mommy, don't go near it." Emily looked down at her son, feeling her heart race. She held Liam's hand tightly, feeling like each step toward the bin was bringing them closer to something terrifying. But she reassured herself, thinking it was just her and Liam's imaginations. Even though she tried to dismiss it, the image of the trash bin and the strange signs around it haunted Emily all day. At night, when everything grew quiet, Emily couldn't stop thinking about the mysteries surrounding the bin. She looked out the window, feeling as if someone or something was watching her from the direction of the bin, making it impossible to close her eyes and sleep peacefully. Emily began to notice something very odd around the area near the trash bin. She realized something she hadn't noticed before. No birds ever flew over that area, No morning songs or chirps of little birds. Everything seemed eerily silent. As Emily thought about this, David came in from the other room and saw her staring blankly out the window. "Are you looking out there again?" David asked, his voice tinged with concern. He had noticed Emily acting differently these past few days. Her mind seemed to be haunted by that trash bin. I feel like something's not right," Emily replied, her eyes still fixed on the bin outside. David sighed, took her hand and gently pulled her away from the window. "My love, I think you need to rest more. Everything will be fine, there's nothing out there." Emily nodded, but deep down she couldn't completely believe her husband's comforting words. She still felt something dark and mysterious hovering around that area. The next morning, Emily decided to take Liam out for a walk. But as soon as they stepped outside, Liam froze, his eyes widening with fear as he looked toward the trash bin. Mommy, don't go there," Liam whispered, clutching his mother's hand tightly, his eyes filling with tears. Emily bent down, hugging Liam and comforting him, but she couldn't shake off the feeling of unease in her own heart. To avoid frightening Liam further, she decided to take a different route out, steering clear of the bin. When they reached a nearby park, Emily ran into a few neighbors and couldn't help but ask, "Has anyone seen anything strange around the trash bin by the old neighbor's house?" An older man frowned, replying, "I've heard that a few cats have gone missing recently. Maybe they got into the bin and got stuck." Emily felt a chill as she heard this. Missing cats? She tried to stay calm and continue the conversation, but the worry clung to her like a shadow. Back home, Emily couldn't stop thinking about what she'd heard. She decided that she would go outside that night to check the area around the bin, hoping to understand what was really going on. That night, when everyone was asleep, Emily quietly opened the door and slipped out into the stillness of the night. The cold air wrapped around her as she took cautious steps toward the bin. She noticed how the streetlight cast a flickering shadow around it. Emily stood there for a long moment, listening to strange sounds coming from within the bin. The noises sounded like faint scratching, as if some creature was desperately trying to escape. Fear washed over her, and she instinctively stepped back, ready to run back home. But she calmed herself, reasoning that it was probably just the wind or some insignificant noise. However, the bone-chilling fear was hard to ignore. The next morning, Emily couldn't shake her anxiety. She decided to speak to another neighbor, an elderly woman named Carmen, whom she knew had lived in the neighborhood for a long time and might know something about its past. When Emily asked Carmen about the trash bin, the woman was silent for a long time before answering. "I think you shouldn't go near it. That trash bin, it has a lot of stories tied to it." "What kind of stories?" Emily asked, her curiosity piqued. Carmen replied slowly, "I don't know much, but people used to say that a homeless man used to live around here. He disappeared mysteriously, and since then many people have said they hear strange noises coming from that trash bin." Emily shuddered as a cold sensation spread through her body. She didn't know how to respond to this. Could there truly be something terrifying inside the bin, or was it just a product of people's imaginations? When she returned home, Emily decided not to mention any of this to David. She feared he would think she was being overly sensitive and worrying for no reason. But the emotions in her heart couldn't be denied, and Liam wasn't a child easily influenced by mere stories. The next day, Emily took Liam out again, and as usual, when they neared the trash bin, Liam became extremely frightened. This time he burst into tears as they passed, and Emily could no longer bear it. "Mommy, don't let it come near me, I'm scared," Liam sobbed, his eyes wide with terror. Emily didn't know what else to do but hold her son close, trying to reassure him. "It's okay, Liam, Mommy will protect you, everything will be all right." But Emily knew she couldn't ignore Liam's fear any longer. Something was truly wrong with that trash bin, and Emily felt she had to uncover the truth, no matter how terrifying it might be. That night, Emily lay awake, thinking about what Carmen had shared. In her mind, she pictured the homeless man lurking in the darkness, along with the strange noises from the trash bin, forming an unsettling chain of details that haunted her. In the following days, Emily saw Liam's fear growing worse. Not only did Liam avoid the area near the trash bin, but even inside the house. Whenever he heard any strange sound from outside, Liam would startle, his eyes wide with terror. One morning, as Emily was preparing breakfast for Liam, she suddenly heard her son crying in the living room. Emily rushed out to find Liam standing by the window. staring at the trash bin with tear-streaked cheeks, his lips trembling. "Mommy, don't let it come near me." Emily held Liam, trying to soothe him, but a strong sense of unease rose within her. She sat down next to her son, gently stroking his soft hair, trying to understand. "Liam, my love, what are you afraid of? Tell me and I'll help you." Liam looked down, his eyes brimming with tears. He hesitated, then whispered as if afraid someone might hear, "There's someone in there, a bad person, Mommy." Emily felt a chill, her spine turning icy cold. Liam's words rang in her mind like an ominous warning. Though she wanted to reassure her son that it was just an ordinary trash bin, she couldn't ignore the sense of dread closing in around her. That night, as Emily lay in bed, her mind once again filled with dark thoughts about the trash bin. The strange dreams and Liam's terror didn't seem like coincidences. Emily felt as if some haunting presence was looming over her family, making it impossible for her to fall asleep. In the dead of night, Emily suddenly heard a noise from outside the window. The strange sound of scratching echoed from the direction of the trash bin, each beat stretching out as if something inside was trying to get out. Emily shivered but gathered her courage, quietly moving toward the window to look outside. Under the faint glow of the streetlight, she saw the trash bin standing there, still and silent, as if nothing was unusual. But the eerie sounds persisted, coming in long, drawn-out intervals. Emily stepped back, trying to calm herself, but the noise made it impossible for her to rest. She went outside, unable to shake the feeling of being haunted. As she stared at the trash bin, she felt as though she was being pulled into its dark, cold shadow. The next morning, Emily decided she couldn't stay silent anymore. She called the police, reporting the strange sounds and unusual signs around the trash bin. However, the dispatcher said there was no reason to be concerned if it was just nighttime noises, and suggested it might be stray cats or lost animals. Emily felt disappointed but decided not to give up. She sensed there was a hidden truth and was determined to protect Liam from this fear. That evening, Emily sat in the living room with Liam, the dim light casting soft shadows in the room. Suddenly, Liam turned to Emily, his eyes wide with worry. "Mom, don't leave me alone." Emily looked at her son, feeling a pang of sadness and sympathy. "My love, I'm here. I'll always be by your side. There's nothing to worry about." But deep down, Emily knew that her words of comfort were becoming empty reassurances. She could sense Liam was genuinely afraid of something far beyond imagination. After Liam fell asleep, Emily stepped quietly out onto the balcony, looking over at the trash bin. This time, she knew she couldn't hesitate any longer. Her fear had reached its peak, and she decided that tomorrow she would do something to uncover the truth behind this eerie trash bin. Returning to her bedroom, Emily lay down beside Liam, gazing at her son's small face and vowing not to let this fear consume her any further. She resolved that tomorrow would be the day she confronted the truth, no matter how terrifying it might be. Emily closed her eyes, but her mind was filled with the strange noises from the trash bin and Liam's frightened gaze. She knew what lay ahead wouldn't be easy, but if she wanted to protect her family, she had no other choice. Emily woke up the next morning with a fierce determination. The fear of the previous night had reached its height, and she knew she couldn't endure this anxiety any longer. She would confront the trash bin and uncover the truth, no matter how frightening it might be. Emily waited until Liam had been taken to a friend's house to play, sparing him from witnessing anything distressing. After confirming that Liam was safely away, Emily returned to face the trash bin, her eyes filled with resolve. Nothing could hold her back now. She walked straight to the bin, her hands trembling but resolute. As she slowly lifted the lid, Emily was horrified by what she saw. Inside the bin lay an elderly woman, frail and weak, lying motionless. She looked like she had suffered greatly, her face gaunt and her skin filthy. Yet the woman was still breathing, barely alive but holding on. Emily collected herself and immediately called for emergency assistance. While waiting, she crouched beside the woman, gently holding her cold, fragile hand. "Ma'am, can you hear me? I'm here to help you, just hang on." The woman slowly opened her eyes, her voice faint as she whispered, "Help me." Emily's heart ached as she looked into the woman's tortured eyes. No one deserved to be abandoned like this, and the sight of her fueled Emily's resolve to protect the elderly woman from whatever had left her in this state. Shortly afterward, the ambulance arrived and transported the woman to the hospital. Emily didn't leave. She rode in the ambulance with her, holding the woman's frail hand tightly. An intense sadness welled up in her, and she silently vowed to do whatever she could to help the elderly woman. At the hospital, Emily waited outside the emergency room, her heart racing with a mix of emotions. She tried to make sense of the woman's condition, but couldn't shake the horrifying images from her mind. She wondered who could be so cruel as to abandon an elderly person in a trash bin. After a while, a doctor emerged from the emergency room. "Are you the one who brought in the patient?" Emily nodded. "Yes, I found her. How is she?" The doctor sighed, his expression somber. "She's severely dehydrated, malnourished, and has multiple injuries. However, she's incredibly resilient, which may have helped her survive." Emily felt a bit of relief, though the pain in her heart remained. She sat by the elderly woman's bedside, waiting for her to wake up. After a while, the woman slowly opened her eyes, looking around until she spotted Emily. Emily smiled gently. "Hello, ma'am. I'm Emily. Do you remember what happened?" The elderly woman nodded weakly, her eyes reflecting deep sadness. "My name is Josephine. I've lived here a long time, but this is how it ends." Emily held her hand firmly, her voice full of empathy. "Mrs. Josephine, I don't know what happened, but I promise to do whatever I can to help you." Josephine gave a tired, grateful smile, tears rolling down her cheeks. "Thank you, Emily. I think this is the first time in a long while that I feel someone truly cares." Emily's heart grew heavy upon hearing those words. Josephine explained that she had once hoped her son Adrian would take care of her as she aged, but Adrian had changed, becoming cold, cruel, and interested only in her assets. She had been abandoned, beaten, and forced to endure suffering at the hands of the son she once loved dearly. "Your son Adrian, how could he be so heartless?" Emily asked, unable to comprehend. "Mrs. Josephine, is there anything you'd like me to do? You can't keep living in such a state." Tears filled Josephine's eyes, a reflection of her deep anguish. "I just want to live in peace, without wealth, without anything. But Adrian, he won't let me have even that." Emily's heart surged with anger. She couldn't accept such cruelty and resolved to help Josephine find peace. She looked at the elderly woman with unwavering determination. "Mrs. Josephine, I promise I won't let anyone hurt you again. I'll protect you." Josephine clasped Emily's hand, her eyes shimmering with newfound hope. "You are so kind. I don't know how to thank you." Emily smiled, feeling a sense of relief as she saw Josephine's spirit rekindle. "Just rest now and know that you won't have to face everything alone anymore." They looked at each other in silence, but in Josephine's gaze was gratitude and a newfound sense of security. Emily knew that the journey ahead wouldn't be easy, but she was determined to help Josephine seek justice and give her a peaceful, happy life. After Josephine's health improved a bit, Emily and her husband David decided to visit her at the hospital. David listened as Emily recounted Josephine's story, and he couldn't hide his outrage. "You're saying that Adrian, her own son, left her in the trash bin?" David asked, his eyes filled with anger. Emily nodded, her voice dropping. "Yes, she spent her whole life giving love and sacrifice for her son, only to be met with abuse and neglect. It's unbelievable." David squeezed Emily's hand. "We need to do something. This can't continue." Emily agreed, and they entered the hospital room where Josephine was resting. She looked healthier, but still bore signs of exhaustion and trauma. When she saw Emily and David, she managed a tired but warm smile. "Mrs. Josephine, this is my husband David," Emily introduced. "He also wants to help you." David stepped forward, taking her hand, his gaze sincere. "Hello, Mrs. Josephine. You don't have to endure this alone anymore. We'll stand by you and help you get through this." Mrs. Josephine looked at David, tears glistening in her aged eyes. "Then, thank you both. I never imagined there was anyone left who would care for me like this." Emily looked at the elderly woman, filled with determination. "Mrs. Josephine, I know that to seek justice and protect yourself, you'll need to speak with the police. If you agree, we'll be by your side throughout this process. We want you to live in peace." Mrs. Josephine was silent for a long moment, seemingly reflecting on Emily's words. Finally, she sighed and nodded slightly. "Perhaps it's time. I can't stay silent anymore. I'll cooperate with the police. I've been afraid for too long." Emily and David smiled, relieved by her decision. They called the police and informed them of Mrs. Josephine's situation. An officer arrived at the hospital to take her statement and understand her story. During the conversation with the officer, Mrs. Josephine recounted everything about her son, Adrian. He had once been a devoted son, but greed for her assets had changed him gradually. He had become cold and cruel, forcing her to relinquish everything to live dependently on him, only to control her property. Adrian doesn't care about me at all. He just wants my assets. He wants to get rid of me to have full control, she said, her voice trembling but filled with bitterness. The officer took careful notes, nodding empathetically. Mrs. Josephine will launch an investigation into Adrian. This is abuse and neglect, and we will protect your rights. Emily held the elderly woman's hand, reassuring her as she seemed emotional. Everything will be okay, Mrs. Josephine. We'll be here for you. After the police left, Mrs. Josephine turned to Emily and David, her eyes filled with gratitude. Thank you both. I don't know what I would have done without you. This is the first time in years I feel like I'm not alone. David held her hand, looking at her with warmth. Mrs. Josephine, from now on, we're your family. You don't have to endure anything else, and your son will have to pay for what he's done. Mrs. Josephine smiled, her tears flowing from emotion. Family? Do I really have a family now? Emily nodded, gently patting her shoulder. Yes, Mrs. Josephine, you have me, David. And even Liam, we all care about you. From that moment, Emily and David were determined to take care of Mrs. Josephine, ensuring she wouldn't face anything alone. They arranged for her to move in with them after being discharged, and their home became a place of comfort and peace for her, something she had longed for. A few days later, Emily brought Mrs. Josephine home. As they entered, Liam ran over, his eyes filled with joy. He looked at Mrs. Josephine with curiosity, but an open friendliness, as if sensing that she was special. Mom, who's that lady? Liam asked, his voice sweet and curious. Emily knelt down, gently speaking to her son. This is Mrs. Josephine, the lady I told you about. She'll be staying with us from now on. Liam smiled, reaching out to hold Mrs. Josephine's hand. Hello, Mrs. Josephine, I'm Liam. Mrs. Josephine looked at Liam, her eyes brimming with emotion and affection. Hello, Liam. I'm very happy to be here with your family. Emily and David exchanged glances, feeling happy to see that Mrs. Josephine was gradually finding joy in life again. With their support and the love of their family, she was no longer alone and she began to regain her faith in life. In the days that followed, Emily and David continued to assist Mrs. Josephine in resolving the legal issues with Adrian to ensure she would receive justice. But above all, they gave her a new home where she no longer had to fear, where she was loved and cared for. In the weeks after she moved in with Emily's family, Mrs. Josephine's life began to stabilize, and a smile slowly returned to her face. Emily and David spent time taking care of her, and Liam became close to her, often sticking by her side like a real grandson. One morning, as Emily and Mrs. Josephine sat outside in the yard, enjoying the sunlight filtering through the trees, Emily smiled and gently asked, Mrs. Josephine, do you feel comfortable here? Mrs. Josephine nodded, her eyes sparkling with joy and gratitude. I truly feel at peace. Thank you, Emily. Because of you, I no longer have to live in fear. Emily held her hand, feeling a deep happiness at seeing Mrs. Josephine finally able to live in the peace she deserved. However, the legal issue with Adrian was still ongoing, and Emily knew it was essential to ensure her long-term safety. That day, Emily received a call from the officer handling Mrs. Josephine's case. She sat down beside her and handed her the phone so she could hear the news firsthand. Hello? This is Josephine. We have some good news for you, the officer said over the phone. After a thorough investigation and gathering sufficient evidence, we have issued an arrest warrant for Adrian for charges of abuse and abandonment of an elderly person. Mrs. Josephine sat silently, her eyes reflecting both surprise and relief. Emily gently held her hand, feeling a surge of joy in knowing that Mrs. Josephine had finally achieved justice. We'll do everything we can to ensure Adrian faces the law. You don't have to worry about anything anymore, the officer added. When the call ended, Mrs. Josephine's eyes welled up with tears. I never thought I'd see the day I'd receive justice like this. I once thought I would have to stay silent and endure, but now it's different. Emily smiled, gently patting her shoulder. You deserve this, Mrs. Josephine. From now on, you'll never have to live in fear again. Hearing the good news, David couldn't hide his joy. He joined Mrs. Josephine, placing a hand on her shoulder and saying, "Not only do you have justice, but you have a family too. We'll always be here to protect you." Mrs. Josephine looked at Emily, David, and little Liam playing nearby, her heart filled with emotion. "You're my family. I don't know what to say other than thank you." Suddenly, Liam ran over, holding Mrs. Josephine's hand and smiling innocently. "Mrs. Josephine, are you happy?" "I'm so happy you're here." Mrs. Josephine nodded, tears of joy streaming down her face. "I'm very happy, Liam. Thank you for bringing back the happiness I thought I'd lost long ago." In the days that followed, Emily's family continued to shower Mrs. Josephine with love and care. They organized warm meals, shared stories, and filled their home with laughter and warmth. Emily and David did everything they could to help her regain trust in life, making her feel like she was truly part of their family. One evening, as Emily and Mrs. Josephine sat together, the elderly woman hesitantly spoke. "Emily, I know I've been a burden on you and your family, but I'm so grateful for all you've done." Emily took her hand, her gaze filled with empathy and love. "Mrs. Josephine, you're not a burden. Family is for loving and supporting one another. We're happy to have you in our lives." Mrs. Josephine smiled, feeling lighter than she had in years. "Thank you, Emily. I never thought I'd be this blessed." Emily looked at her heart full of joy. "Mrs. Josephine, from now on live for your own happiness. We'll create beautiful memories together, and you'll never have to worry again." Both of them laughed, and Emily felt as if all pain or worry had melted away. Mrs. Josephine was no longer a lonely, mistreated elderly woman. Now she was part of a complete family where she was loved and cared for. David joined them, sitting down beside the two women. "From now on, please consider this house as your home. We'll all live happily together." Liam came running over, laughing innocently. "I really like Mrs. Josephine. Will she stay here forever, Mum?" Emily and David looked at each other, both smiling as they nodded. Emily replied, "Yes, Liam, Mrs. Josephine will stay here with us, and we'll all live together in happiness." Mrs. Josephine took Liam's hand, her eyes shining with happiness. It had been so long since she had felt such peace and completeness. Emily and David had given her not only the protection and justice she so longed for, but also the love and warmth of a real family. The story of Mrs. Josephine is not only about the pain of a person abandoned, but also a profound lesson about compassion, patience, and the human responsibility to protect one another. Through Emily's experiences, we see clearly the danger of rumors and groundless assumptions that can obscure the truth and leave those in need to suffer silently. Emily demonstrated that patience and determination in the pursuit of truth can not only save a life, but also bring to light a heartbreaking story, a life in need of protection and care. At first, Emily and her family thought the strange noises, foul smell and suspicious signs around the trash bin were simply odd events, perhaps products of imagination, or even the result of rumors spread by those around them. At times, they felt afraid, intimidated by the idea that something unclean or haunted lingered in the area. These are familiar thoughts that we often fall into in daily life. Rumors and fears often stem from ignorance and uncertainty. The whispered stories, the invisible fears magnified by imagination, prevented many people from approaching the trash bin, unintentionally overlooking the fact that someone in need might be inside. Baseless fear caused people to forget that not all strange signs are omens of evil or things to be avoided. In reality, these signs might be cries for help from someone abandoned, someone lonely in desperate need of assistance. Emily didn't let rumors or fear sway her resolve. She listened to the voice of her heart and trusted her genuine feelings about the trash bin, choosing to clarify the truth rather than following the stories around her. This reminds us that sometimes we need to place compassion and understanding above fear or vague prejudices that society may impose. We must be more aware of whether someone right in front of us might need help. The story also teaches a lesson about sensitivity and patience. Children like Liam lack the ability to clearly articulate their feelings, but can still sense something very unusual around them. Emily didn't ignore Liam's reactions. Instead, she chose to listen, observe, and ultimately uncover the truth. The lesson here is that no sign, however small or seemingly insignificant, should be overlooked. The emotions and reactions of those around us, even the youngest, can be crucial clues in identifying a dangerous situation or someone who needs help. Emily's sensitivity and determination to help Mrs. Josephine also remind us that sometimes, to save someone, we must rise above our personal fears and prejudices. If Emily and David had merely heeded the rumors and not looked closely, Mrs. Josephine might have continued to endure a life of loneliness and abuse with no chance of rescue. Emily and her family's decision to take her in shows the importance of compassion and family support in creating a safe environment, helping others to regain trust and happiness. Mrs. Josephine's story is also a warning that human neglect can sometimes drive others to despair. Her son Adrian not only abandoned her, but actively stripped away her right to live in peace out of sheer greed and selfishness. Adrian's actions led to Mrs. Josephine's tragic situation, but thanks to Emily and her family's patience and determination, justice was ultimately served, and Adrian faced legal responsibility for his actions. This serves as a reminder that no one is above the law, and that compassion is essential in protecting those who are vulnerable. If you enjoyed this story, we invite you to give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Your support motivates us to keep bringing heartwarming stories almost every day. We are very grateful for your support. See you soon.